Module 3, Law, Ethics, and Educational Leadership, Chapter 1, by Kristen Herring. For ED-LD 5623, Developing Leaders, under Dr. Kimberly Wilkerson, February 20th, 2022. The Leadership Perspective. Administrators will face problems, and they will be responsible for investigating, acknowledging, and taking steps to deal with those problems. There are two types of problems that they will face. Educational leaders will face routine problems, and these are problems that administrators have faced before and have solutions that may not be simple, but because they have addressed them before, they know how to handle them a little bit easier. Non-routine problems are those that are challenging problems and may lead to other issues along the way, or other problems may be revealed along the way, and many times these non-routine problems take more effort into choosing the best solution. It is important for educational leaders to think through problems that they have been presented before making decisions and before they decide to follow what someone else has suggested. Stater, 2013. Interstate School Leaders Licensure Consortium Steering Committee, the ISLLC, developed 6 standards provided by the NPBEA for educational leaders. These standards promote the success of every student. These standards provide expectations of educational leaders. And what you find is that they provide attributes of educational leaders, needed actions of the educational leaders, and duties of educational leaders. Stater, 2013. They state that educational leaders will work with stakeholders to create a vision. They will build a school culture and school system that strives to increase student achievement and development of faculty and staff. Educational leaders will provide a secure, adequate, and successful school atmosphere. They will effectively communicate with stakeholders, seek to understand the differing community needs and wants, and build community partnerships. Educational leaders will conduct themselves with moral virtue, without impartiality, and in an honorable way. They will discern, act, and promote the law, social justice, financial obligations, diversity, and civic duty. Stater, 2013. Now, in looking at this, I wanted to compare these standards to the new professional standards for educational leaders that came out in 2015. And what I found is that the new standards prioritize students and they prioritize student achievement. Relating law and ethics to educational leadership. It is important to note that Stater emphasized these guidelines are in place and they are not to be disregarded by educational leaders. Educational leaders who make decisions without regard to these established regulations and guidelines are looked down upon. Administrators should be able to defend their decision with law and ethics. And educational leaders have been seen as the final say, so it is crucial that they consider the rights of everyone involved. Stater, 2013. Defining ethical leadership means choosing to do what is right. The key thing is that when you choose what is right, you consider all of the consequences, you consider other people, you consider the pros and the cons, and we educational leaders should ask the question, is this right or wrong? Is this good or bad? Stater, 2013. The 2015 PSEL standards show an increased need for educational leaders to make decisions using more than just moral reasoning. Educational leaders should also use moral action. Ethical frameworks help guide administrators in the decision-making process. but they cannot be the only things that are considered when making decisions. Ethical frameworks encourage administrators to ponder the future and the effect that the solution will have on all stakeholders. One example is allowing your faculty to have a voice, but when they have the voice, paying attention to whether or not their solution disregards what is needed for students. And you want to make sure as an educational leader you keep in mind what or the impact this solution is going to have on all stakeholders, most importantly your students. Ill-structured problems are those problems that have solutions that are not going to be approved by everyone. And there are times where educational leaders make decisions and there are people and stakeholders involved that do not approve or agree with the solution made. Stater 2013. Law, ethics, and decision making. Educational leaders must use law and ethics when making decisions. Law and ethics is a key part of each standard, both the old and the new ones. Stater 2013. It is directly related to PSEL Standard 2, which centers around the ethical actions of administrators. PSEL 2015. There are 3 stages of sound ethical decision-making. Combining ethical and legal principles with decision-making, stage 1. In this stage, the educational leader identifies what the problem is, who is going to be impacted by the decision made, who should be involved in the decision-making process, and what the outcomes are expected to be, and which of the outcomes is the most acceptable. Combining ethical and legal principles with decision-making, stage 2. During this stage, the educational leader should study the issue. At this point, they do the research and collect information from all stakeholders. They would analyze the consequences of each solution and be prepared to lead through change if change is needed. And sometimes leading through change is difficult. Combining ethical and legal principles with decision making. During stage 3, the decision is made, and the educational leader accepts responsibility for the decision. During this stage, the educational leader develops a plan, and stakeholders should be involved in the solution and plan. Educational leaders should evaluate the decision and reflect on the outcomes.